Hey everyone, this is Troy. I hope you're enjoying the presentation by Cliff and myself. We'll be the first to admit that we don't know, we're not the biggest experts on finding balance in your life, but hopefully through what we're showing you today that you're going to find that some hints and some tips and tricks on how you can find a little bit more balance and make sure that work isn't the most important thing in your life. What I'm going to show you today is a hobby that I picked up about 5 years ago, which was beekeeping. It's kind of an interesting story how I got into it. I actually grew up dairy farming, and every summer we had to go out in the fields and change the water, change the sprinklers, and I'd have to ride my bike right past this big set of beehives. And sometimes I'd stop about 100 feet or so away from the hives, and I'd just watch, and you could see all these little torpedo bees just coming and going from the hives all over the place. And I would never dare get any closer because I thought for sure that if I got any closer I was going to get attacked by these bees. I didn't know how they worked. I just knew that somehow there was honey inside the hives, and it was going to, and somehow it magically would appear, and they'd come at the end of the summer and get the honey. So I went home, and I told my wife something to the effect of, hey, it would be cool to have bees. And she said something like, yeah, that would be cool. And I, being the good husband, thought that that was explicit permission that I could go get beehives. So I went to IFA and I purchased 2 beehives. I did not tell her about them until I think it was about the day before or so when I had to pick them up. Finally let her know that, hey, I have a couple hives coming, and we won't go into how that discussion went, but I did feel it was explicit permission. I was okay to get it. Okay, so we're gonna get the smoker started. What I use, everyone uses something different. Some people use pine needles, some people use wood. I just go to Cal Ranch or wherever, and generally they do some cells on some burlap for a couple bucks. I cut them into little squares like this, and I will throw it in here. I probably should be using a match, but that takes too long. So we're gonna get this thing rolling here. And while that's burning, I'm going to put on, okay, this is the back corner of my yard here. Don't pay attention to the garden here, it's all dead, and you know, for the end of year we've harvested it and whatnot. But I've got 4 hives here, a little bit of water for the bees, and we're going to go into this hive right here because the sun's on it. It's not going to be the same thing as if we went into the summer. I've actually taken all the honey off, and later on you're going to see how we harvest the honey. But we want to make sure these bees make it through the winter, so we need to make sure that there's enough food in there of both honey and pollen, and we want to make sure the queen bee is alive in there. So what I'm hoping is once we get in here, we'll be able to see the queen bee. But this is a typical hive. There's many different types of hives. You can see here we've got some conglomeration of bees out here. It is pretty warm today. Okay, let's go into it. So I'm going to, you can see this hive back here. They're out flying around. But I'm going to come down here. And you'll notice when I'm just going to give a little bit of smoke, and you don't see a lot of the smoke. You don't have to cover them in smoke, but you want to let them know that, hey, something's happening here. And you can already see that they're starting to kind of, it's not as thick down there as it used to be. I'm going to open it up, blow a little smoke in there, and just give them just a second to kind of react to that a little bit. And you'll see that when I open it, notice the bees have all gone down inside, where before they may not have been doing that. And this is a little bit of a mite treatment that I have on here. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull out one frame. There's not too many bees on here, but what this hive is, you'll see a few things in here. Number one, you'll see all of this fancy comb here, and notice if I go along and rub it, it can break it down. The bees actually secrete this wax, and they'll actually create what we call honeycomb. It's like the cereal honeycomb, yeah, that little hexagon shape. If in geometry, the hexagon is the one shape that's closest to a circle, it requires the least amount of wall surface space to create, and there's no wasted space. So it's a very, very efficient design. And I'm going to kind of pop open this a little bit and see if we can't find anything interesting in here. We may not find any babies in here just because it's almost winter and the queen slows down. Okay, Jenny, come on over. And so what we see here is, it's going to be hard to see, but there's a mixture of honey and pollen on here. The little orange cells right there, that's actually pollen from flowers. Bees eat 2 things. It's what I just said, honey and pollen. And then all that liquid stuff in between is the honey. Up here at the top, down here where you can see it's kind of open, those cells aren't quite full yet, so they're not capped. But up here, where the bees have filled up the honey, if I were to swipe my little tool on here, see how the honey comes out like that? That's the honey that's been stored, and the bees put this little wax layer over it, and that keeps the honey from, it's a way to preserve it. Honey never goes bad. It's actually antimicrobial. It was used as a medicine in old days. And that's because even when you store it, you don't have to seal it, but it's a way for them to